I really wanted to get dressed up in all of my old 80s clothes, but I don't have them anymore. And I wish I could say it's because I'm so fashion forward that I got rid of them, but frankly, I just didn't fit in them anymore. So do me a favor, close your eyes and picture me in like a members only jacket and acid wash jeans and like a t-shirt that says Frankie say relax and like Wayfarer sunglasses, and I'm younger and thinner and taller and rich, and I can play the saxophone. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below, and it'll give you a pretty good idea or overview of what this syllabus is all about. Basically, we take a look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, where I take a recommendation that's given to me by you guys, a movie I've never seen before, I check it out, and then determine whether or not it's worthy of being on the horror movie syllabus. Today's recommendation came to us from Sarah, aka the Rose Bride, friend of the channel and friend personally. And this is a little bit different because she has recommended Totally Killer. And why it's different is because normally I take these recommendations from the comments to the videos on the horror movie syllabus. In this case, Sarah reached out to me separately because she had just seen Totally Killer, which at the time of this recording has just come out, and recommended it to me. Thought it would be something that I would like. And knowing the premise of the movie, because I have seen the trailer for it, I thought, yeah, that's something I'm going to be interested in. It's basically a horror time travel movie, which, as a lot of you guys know, is kind of my jam. I really like those kind of movies. So I was already predisposed to check this out. Sarah's endorsement of it just making a bit of an extra reason or extra motivation to check it out. And it also kind of gave me an excuse because I don't usually do new movies here on the channel. I'm usually looking backwards, not forwards or the current movies that are just dropping. And I'll be honest with you, I don't get to see a lot of the new horror movies that come out because I'm spending so much of my free time watching movies to make videos about for this channel. So this felt like a way to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I could take the recommendation from Sarah and do a Is It Syllabus Worthy video for this brand new movie that's just come out and give myself an opportunity to watch it while also doing research for the channel. So it was kind of a multitasking effort for me that I was really proud of myself for. So hopefully you guys don't mind that I bent the rules ever so slightly. This is not a movie coming off the to watch list, but it was something that was recommended to me. So hopefully you don't mind that too much, and hopefully you don't mind talking about a movie that maybe a lot of you haven't even seen yet. So I'm going to do my best not to spoil when we talk about it, but first thing we're going to have to talk about is, did I like it? Did I hate it? Well, let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're talking about today is Totally Killer. Totally Killer came out in 2023, which honestly just came out a couple of days ago as of the time of this recording, and is an Amazon Prime movie. It came out on Amazon Prime. It was directed by Nahnatchka Khan, who is known more for sitcoms. I've seen some of the sitcoms she's done, and the only other feature she's done so far is Always Be My Maybe, which was a romantic comedy that I think premiered on Netflix or one of the streaming services. And that was a cute movie, but she's definitely got a comedy or sitcom type sensibility, and this movie definitely reflects that. For better or for worse, we're going to find out. But first, if you haven't seen it before, the premise of the movie is that a teenage girl in high school lives with her mother and father, who were victims when they were in high school of a serial killer who has gone dormant for the last 35 years, but winds up rearing his head again. And the high school girl winds up finding a time machine and going back to 1987 to when her parents were in high school being stalked by this killer, and she needs to solve the identity of the killer and save the day so that she can save her family and save her future. And of course, hijinks abound when you have a premise like that. But we won't spoil the movie because I'm guessing a lot of you haven't even had a chance to see it yet. But the movie is definitely one that's worth seeing. And the main reason for that is the concept of the movie. The concept of the time travel back to the 80s to solve this crime is not exactly the most original thing in the world. In fact, the movie constantly alludes to Back to the Future to kind of illustrate that it's not the most original movie. and it's not trying to be. And that's the thing about this, is that it's got a really cool concept. It's got the time travel aspect, which is, a sweet spot for me, and it's got the fact that it's really playing up the comedy. It's really not, I mean, it's a slasher movie, don't get me wrong, but it's a comedy first. In fact, you could make an argument that it has the balance wrong, that there's too much comedy and not enough horror. But honestly, it doesn't matter because they really are having fun with their concept. To me, this is one of the best parts of the movie, is the fact that they are just not getting hung up on the logistics of time travel and like how this plot should be working out and things like that. They're really just getting to the fun stuff. They are not going to spend a lot of time on people not believing this girl when she says she's from the future, or trying to explain why she knows what she knows, or things like that. They're just moving right along. They're going to keep this thing moving at a nice brisk pace, and that's fun. And the way they address this is basically just referencing Back to the Future and comparing and contrasting their setup and their physics, if you will, with Back to the Future, which is a great shorthand because we already know this trope. We already know this premise. We don't need to go through those same hoops because we know them already. We're savvy to them. And so is the character. And that helps a lot because she's leveraging that to motivate how she makes decisions and what she decides to do. She knows how people should be reacting, so she's just going to do something different because she knows it'll shortcut the story, shortcut her objective, and that works for the movie really, really well. I really like that it's going to, make fun of the 80s like you would expect it to do, but not in the way that you'd expect it to do. It's not like, The Wedding Singer or something like that, where it's just making fun of how everybody dresses and their cool 80s style and stuff like that and all how dated everything is. They're really leaning more into the difference between like the social perspective in the 80s versus today, and how a PC culture of today really struggles with the way things are in the 80s, like how everybody's smoking and casual about like homophobia and safety and things like that. Like there's just no security anywhere, and it played for laughs, and it's played really, really well for laughs. So I liked that. Felt like a fresh aspect to me. It felt like it was fun to explore how things have changed, not in terms of style or even technology, but in terms of attitude. Our attitudes now versus what was okay with us in the 80s. It's great. It's one of the best parts of the movies for me. And it sidesteps the obvious 80s, look at how quaint the 80s was, trope that I expected there to be when I saw the trailer of this movie. Nice touch, really good. Focusing on the social norms and things that are different for our lead character versus how it was back in the past, and even some of the technology and stuff. The idea that, like, for example, at one point she gets the killer's DNA, and the police have absolutely no idea what to do with that. They don't get it. They don't care. They think she's ridiculous. Awesome stuff. I really like that. I like highlighting the differences between the two time periods in ways that I wasn't expecting, in ways that I thought felt fresher than what I've seen in other, 80s type spoof movies. So to me, that was the biggest bullet that it dodged, because that was my biggest concern when I saw the trailer, was there's going to be a lot of like, ha ha ha, let's laugh at the 80s stuff. But it didn't do that. I mean, it did a little bit, but not enough to overstay its welcome. It really focused on different things to make fun of. It did still lean into like this 80s stereotype characters, but I felt like as the movie went on, it really kind of thawed those out a little bit and made the people feel a little bit more well-rounded. And part of this is because it has this fun premise of going back in time. So a lot of the characters that she's dealing with when she goes back in time are younger versions of people that you've seen her dealing with, in her time period, where they're all adults now. And so you're seeing the younger versions of them. And it's fun because it's set up how what they were like as kids and what it leads to as them as adults. And a lot of it's, of course, the comedy of the contrast. And, like, oh, they're so prim and proper now, and they were like, sex crazed, drug fueled party animals back when they were younger. And then, that's kind of an obvious joke and everything like that. But the reason why it works for me, I think, is because you've got a really game cast. You've got a game cast of people who are there to have fun, and they're having fun, and so it lets you accept the premise. You've got actors that across the board got the assignment. They understood, we're here to have fun. Now, I want to be clear about this. Nobody in the movie is great. There's no great acting here, but there's also no bad acting here. Everybody's just doing their job. Everybody's doing it, and whether you got the young cast or the old cast, they're working, they're doing work, and they're doing it well. You've got Kiernan Shipka as the lead character, and we've talked about her before in Blackcoat's Daughter. She's great. Most people know her from like Mad Men or Sabrina. The Sabrina thing is really kind of what catapulted her to fame. But she's really solid here, and it's important because she is holding this down. you really have to like her and be with her in order to have this movie work for you. And I'm with her on this. She is charming, she's funny, she's very capable, and they set up in the movie why she's so capable early on, so that when she's able to do things like self-defense, like that, you know why. You buy into it. Everything that she winds up displaying later on is set up so she's a very strong character, and again, she's got this innate charm that's really working for her and makes her very likable, and you want to follow her and you want to see her succeed. So good casting on that point, and then everybody else around her is working really well. The big one being Olivia Holt, who is playing the younger version of her mom, and of course there's a lot of comedy there about her interacting with her mom as a teenager, and it works. And I don't know Olivia Holt. She gets like kind of more into, she's got her starting to Disney stuff, and she's done a lot of work, but I haven't seen like any of it. But she's good here. She's very believable as kind of the mean girl who maybe not quite as mean and not as shallow as you think. She sells me on that. And then you've got some of the other actors, Julie Bowen, who plays the older mom, and Lachlan Moreau, who plays the dad. And you know me, I like me some Lachlan Moreau. I always welcome him. Randall Park, who has a few scenes, and he's always a winner in this. He's just funny, and he has some good points in the movie that really help make the plot move along. You know, he basically comes out and tells you, "Hey, man, don't get too caught up on this time travel stuff because these movies they're dumb. They don't make a lot of sense. Don't worry about it." And when he says that, you do. You just let that stuff go. And that's the thing about this movie. It's got some plot holes. It's got some budget issues, and they're very forgivable because they're having a good time, because they're making the story move along, because the story is engaging enough, the mystery is engaging enough, the twists are working for me. So I'm okay that the movie doesn't have any Back to the Future level effects. You know, the effects are not really all that great, to be honest with you. The kills are pretty minimal. There's not a lot of gore in there. They're not terribly elaborate. You're not getting a lot of like really interesting Friday the 13th style kills. They're pretty much standard slasher, stab, stab, stab. And I'm okay with this because I'm really having fun watching the movie. There are some big plot holes in this movie, and I recognize some of them even while watching it. And I just like set them aside, brush them aside. There's this whole thing about like, people remembering stuff that happened that shouldn't really remember things. And I don't want to spoil things too much, so I don't want to say too much about that. The idea that nobody's questioning how Kiernan Shipka's character knows the things that she knows. She has an excuse about her being psychic that is pretty funny, and it works really well for reasons in the story. But like nobody bats an eyelash at who she is, why she's there, or does any kind of investigating. And they play it for a joke, and that's the way to do it. Just make it funny. Again, Randall Park's just kind of saying, hey, these kind of movies don't make any kind of sense. It's really like kind of like Austin Powers when he kind of points like, hey, don't spend too much time thinking about this. And it gives you permission to turn that part off and just have a good time. The pacing is solid. The acting is solid. The plot is solid. Everything is doing good work. They're just having fun. They know why they came here, and they're doing what they came here to do. And they're just, they're just telling a fun story, and everything is working really well. Nothing is great, but everything is good, really good. And so is it good enough to be on the horror movie syllabus? Let's find out. So, is Totally Killer good enough to be on the syllabus? Not totally, but probably, possibly. We'll see how this movie's reputation endures as time goes on. Does it stick with people, or does it kind of come and go? Because I think that'll be kind of the deciding factor as to whether or not it's syllabus worthy. But based on an early first watch, right as it's just come out, it's definitely got the makings of something like that. It's definitely a fun movie, if a bit inconsequential. And that's the thing that maybe might not help it in terms of longevity. Like, it's not like a movie like Final Girls where you have a tremendous amount of heart in it, and there's like an emotional component to it that really makes it resonate and makes it something that I think endures more. It's a similar kind of concept in the mother-daughter aspect of it, but it doesn't have the same kind of heart. It's very surface level. It's very sitcom-y. And so and I say that not as a critique. It's fun. But it's kind of disposable as a result. So is it going to be the kind of sitcom that endures, or the kind of sitcom that comes and goes and is forgotten about? Time will tell. But time is another aspect of this movie that really helps. I love a time travel movie. I think they're very popular, and I think that that's a big part of what makes this movie work, is that the time travel aspect of it, while an important part of the story and a large source of the mining of for humor and things, it really didn't do the stereotypical thing that most of these types of movies or most of these 80s throwback type things do. It's not just sitting there mired in ha ha ha, look at the 80s. And I think that may help it get more of the following, get more interesting, but it's also tied into looking at cultural norms and societal norms and perspectives of today versus the 80s. And I don't know if that part will hold up so well in 10, 20 years. So time will tell. But the thing about this movie that I like so much and why it would make me want to put it on the syllabus is that it understands what it is. It's not trying to do anything more than just have a good time and entertain you. And at that, it 100% succeeds. It's having so much fun and it's entertaining me so much that I'm ignoring these plot flags, and what I mean by that is there were certain things in the plot that would have helped me solve the mystery, but I just kind of brushed them aside because I was just, following the story, and the story is moving along so quickly, like there's this note that pops up and, it's not questioned too much. Or like the idea that when the killer returns after 35 years, everybody just assumes, yeah, the killer has returned. And my mind is like trying to itch at those things a little bit. But I'm having a good time. So I'm like, just go for the ride. And that's my recommendation to you is go along for the ride. If you notice some of these plot holes, things like, somebody dying and then coming back to life or things like that, that doesn't really get explained very well, try to just brush those aside and just have fun. Because this movie just wants you to have fun, and I did. And again, that's why I think I would probably want to try to put it in the syllabus, probably in the time travel subgenre, because it is clearly where it belongs. It could also maybe put in the slasher subgenre, but this is definitely a good time. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend checking it out. Like I said, my only caveat about saying it's syllabus worthy for sure is just because I want to see how the general opinion of it is both immediately and, in the next few years to see if this movie is one that has legs. But for me, I really enjoy it. I would watch it again. I would recommend it to other people, and I would watch it with other people. So definitely one to go ahead and check out. And now it's time to check out a horror trivia pursuit card. As you know, I like to look at a horror trivia pursuit card and read the question here and see if I can answer it live on camera. And because we're talking about a slasher movie, let's look at the killer category on the card. Here's the question. What is the relationship between Papa Jupiter and Ruby in 1977's The Hills Have Eyes? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, even though, as a lot of you know, the Achilles heel for me a lot of the times is character names. Now, what's interesting, I remember Papa Jupiter from The Hills Have Eyes. I remember that name. But I don't necessarily remember who Ruby is, but I'm pretty sure I know who Ruby is. Just from the context of the question, I am pretty sure I know who Ruby is. But that would be like the one caveat as to what made me second guess my answer. But like as soon as I read the question, I was pretty sure I knew the answer, and I'm going to stick with my answer because we all know I get myself into trouble if I start overthinking these things. So I'm not going to overthink it, but I am giving you a little bit of time to think about it for yourself. Now, The Hills Have Eyes is, we've talked about this movie, and we've also talked about the remake of this movie, which I think is actually the superior version. The 1977 version, it's Wes Craven, but it's not one of my favorites of his. It's good, but I think the Alexandra Aja version, the remake, is just brutal. Really, really good. I'd recommend checking out both. The first one more for horror education purposes, and the second one if you really like something that's intense and pretty violent. So again, not going to be for everybody, but that's just me giving you a little bit of time to think about the answer to the question, but time to wrap it up and button it up and think about what you're going to answer, because I'm going to make my answer now. My answer is that they are father and daughter. Papa Jupiter is the father, and Papa Jupiter, and that Ruby is his daughter. And I'm like 99% sure that I'm right on this one, but let's check the card and find out. And the card says father-daughter, father-daughter. Like that's the answer. So I am dead on right. My only concern on that was if Ruby was actually the name of one of the victims, one of the other victims. But I was pretty sure that I was right on this one. I was pretty sure I remembered who she is in the movie. So I got this one right. I'm glad about that. I'm guessing that maybe most of you, even if you didn't know the movie, could probably guess this one. Again, the context of the card kind of gives you a little bit of a clue. So hopefully you guys got it right. And if you didn't, of course, let me know your wrong answers. And hopefully you guys check out Totally Killer if you haven't already. And let me know what you think about this one, because I had a really good time. I suspect a lot of you guys will as well too. It's plenty of things to nitpick about it, but why? Why waste your time doing that when you can just have a good time? And let me know what you think. And of course, we'll be back next week with something completely different. But until then, class dismissed. And I'm good at sports. And I'm a really cool dancer. And I drive a Lamborghini or Lotus Esprit. And when I do something awesome, people do a slow clap.